when do you fade away from training equipment? As a dog owner, as a pet owner, a client, it's a very, very important question. A lot of pet people, a lot of your clients don't want to have training equipment on their dogs the whole time. They don't want to have a tree pouch on them the whole time. Whatever training collars that they're using, they don't want to have it on the whole time. So it's a question that comes up quite often. As dog trainers, it turns into a little bit of a question of self-discovery as a dog trainer. Do I feel like I need a certain piece of equipment? Am I a better trainer for not using that piece of equipment? Does it mean I'm not a good trainer if I'm dependent on a piece of equipment? So this question does come from different angles, whether you're a dog trainer or whether you're a client. And here's really what you have to think about, how you have to think about this. They're really just tools. That's all they are. If you look at tools as tools, then you don't have to wonder whether you need to fade away from them or not. Because the very fact that they're tools, it tells you that they serve a very important purpose. In other words, do you ask a carpenter, hey, when can you fade away from using that, air compressor? When can you fade away from using that circular saw? When do you fade away from using that power drill? They're tools. Can you take that power drill away from that carpenter? Yes. Can you take away the miter saw from that carpenter? Yes. Is he going to then use a handsaw? Is he going to use something else? Is he going to use a hammer instead of a pneumatic nail gun? Yes. Does he need to? No. Does it make him less of a carpenter if he uses these tools to build whatever project he's working on? No. So I look at dog training in a very similar fashion. So if I'm using tools, then to me, they're tools that I'm using for a very specific purpose. It makes training easier, it makes communication easier. So why would I want to fade away from that? Right? And there are certain instances in which, yes, you don't necessarily have to be dependent on a tool. That's the thing. You should not be dependent on a tool, right? Just because a tool is convenient, it doesn't mean that you should become dependent on it. The tools themselves don't train the dog. It takes a person with a brain and some skills to train that dog. The tools are the vehicle. So, in a very similar fashion with the carpenter, the tools themselves do not build the wall, do not build that frame, do not build that house or that project. It's the carpenter through the use of these tools. So I don't fade away from tools necessarily because they're great communication tools. Here's the problem with fading away. When you fade away and that is your aim and that is your goal and you rush to it, what happens is you make mistakes. Not you, the dog makes mistakes. Now the dog has a learning history with making mistakes. Now not only is your dog making mistakes because they're gambling and you're gambling, but also now you're actually making your dog dependent on these tools. Because each time that they make a mistake and you're not able to follow through, and then you put the tool back on so that you can follow through, you're really giving that dog a very strong message which says you are not consistent when A, B, and C are not part of the equation. When you remove that food, when you remove that tree pouch, I'm not doing this, right? When you remove my training equipment and I make a mistake, there is no way for you to follow through. So then the dog gambles, you lost, and now you've actually not only not achieved what you wanted, but you've actually done quite the opposite, and you're accidentally making the dog possibly more dependent on tools. So fading away is not this awesome, amazing thing. I truly believe from a pet person's perspective, it really boils down to misunderstanding of the tool. The reason a lot of people want to fade away is they don't want to feel evil. They don't want to feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hurt my baby, so I'm just going to use it for now, but then eventually, hopefully, I never have to use it again. That's because deep down, they haven't quite bought into the idea of using these tools properly, means that they're just tools. As far as trainers goes, it baffles me why a trainer would want to put him or herself in a position in which they are no longer able to follow through. And they want to make their lives much more difficult. And that is whether it's a training collar or whether it's the use of treats. You know, treats and training collars, they're tools. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.